We're again going to talk about the Charlie Gard thing, and I'm going to highlight sort of what I think is the most extreme and sadly, possibly even the most representative viewpoint of some in the pro-choice universe. I've noticed that this whole Charlie Gard thing has been something where I haven't heard a single liberal even talking about it. I haven't or expressing any kind of viewpoint about it because I don't think I don't know exactly what too many on the left actually think about this, but here is an opinion piece from The Guardian, which is a newspaper out of the UK, talking about the Charlie Gard case. Obviously, Charlie Gard is a British topic. This is written by a guy named Ian Kennedy, who I believe is a lawyer of some sort. Here's what he writes. He talks about no one can be other than deeply moved by the sad story of Charlie Gard. His short life has been one of illness and suffering. His parents have lived every hour of the past 11 months with the nightmare that is every parent's worst fear. What's going to happen to Charlie? And I notice that when people start by saying, no one can help but feel moved by blah, 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 they immediately become the people who say, but we shouldn't do anything about this kid. And this is what he says. So here's where this article gets to the root sort of divide between the kind of pro-life and pro-parental rights side and the kind of pro-choice and non-pro-parental rights side. This is what he says. The first step is to recognize that children do not belong to their parents. This is a quote from this article. That children do not belong to their parents. Second, when a claim is made that parents have rights over their children, it is important to step back and examine the language used. We need to remind ourselves that parents do not have rights regarding their children. They only have duties, the principal duty being to act in their child's best interests. This has been part of the fabric of our law and our society for a long time. Third, if we are concerned with the language of rights, it is, of course, children who have rights. Any rights that parents have exist only to protect their children's rights. Now, this is being widely criticized as sort of, I mean, this is a pretty mainstream viewpoint in the United Kingdom, clearly. I mean, this is published in one of their leading newspapers. This guy is saying that children do not belong to their parents. Just flat out. Children do not belong to their parents. And that parents do not have rights over their children. I mean, this is a wild, wild viewpoint. Basically, what this guy is saying is fundamentally, it is the state that has obligations and duties towards children, and rights as it relates to children, and that parents are allowed basically to come in and make certain decisions, most decisions about their children, which is completely backwards. I don't know if this guy has some sort of philosophical background or something, but this is absurd to say that children belong to their parents. That has to be the standpoint from which we operate. That it has been the standpoint with which American law has viewed the rights between parents and children. Essentially, that children belong to their parents. Parents make decisions for their children, except for certain exceptions where the government steps in. Things like child abuse. Okay, things like parents in the healthcare realm, things like parents refusing to give their child basic life-saving treatments or something like that. Child abuse is essentially the only way in which the state will step in and take over for the parents, step in and say, no, you parents ordinarily, you have rights over your children. These children belong to you. But because you are doing something that's so dangerous and so harmful to your kids, we are going to step in and stop you. This guy has the exact reverse position, and that's sort of the position that led to Charlie's death. Essentially, in a case we were talking about, in a case that was really a judgment call, about whether or not it would be a good idea for Charlie to get this treatment. The government of the United Kingdom was basically saying, no, parents, you don't have rights over this kid. We are the entity that has rights over this kid, and we will decide what his best treatment is, and you cannot make that decision for yourself. This op-ed goes on. Now, in giving effect to a child's rights, the parents' views as to their children's interests should usually be respected, but parents cannot always be the ultimate arbiters of their children's interests. If parents, for example, insist on subjecting their child to a particular diet that, in the view of others with acknowledged experience in the subject, will cause the child harm, we do not stand by. This guy is like basically saying the government should intervene if you're not feeding your kids healthy enough food. This is the definition of basically totalitarianism. Children don't belong to the state. Children belong to their parents, and the state has to exist to recognize that, to protect the interests, to protect parents, to safeguard their rights, and only to interject themselves in cases of child abuse. As it relates to the life issues, such as end-of-life decision-making, as it relates to assisted suicide, these principles have to be secured that parents must make these choices, not the government, and that the lives of children have to be protected by the government. That is the only proper role of government, is to protect the lives and safety of children if, in some rare instance, it's being threatened by the parents.